This may be up for debate, but in my opinion, the knife is the most important tool in the kitchen. Today, I'm going to share why a good knife doesn't necessarily equal an expensive knife and why I really love my cheap knives. Also, I'm going to give you 3 tips to help you maximize your cheap knives and make them perform to the best of their abilities. First, why I love them. See, they're really just not that valuable. After hearing that riveting insight, you might be wondering if the rest of the video has any valuable information in it, and I promise you it does. Cheap knives are my favorite because they're accessible to everyone, they get the job done, and I'm not afraid of damaging them. And so that means I use them day in and day out, and I abuse them, and they've taught me a lot of what I know in terms of cooking, in terms of cutting, in terms of knife skills. And so this knife that I got from my mom when I moved out of her house and went to college has been with me for the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been through a lot, but also I have learned a lot with it in the process. And I think that's one thing that I really want to emphasize is that cheap knives can teach you just as much as expensive knives, and you can become just as good of a cook with these cheap knives as you can with a really expensive knife or a really nice looking knife. And so today I want to show you my secrets to getting the most out of these kitchen knives that are considered cheap and are typically more beginner knives. And so let's get into it. My mom gave me this knife when I moved out and went to college. And the real reason I love it is because I'm not afraid to abuse it. The best thing about cheap knives is they're replaceable, and this one is pretty sturdy, and I imagine a lot of them are pretty sturdy as well because they're not like a carbon steel knife where they're gonna shatter and they're a little brittle if you mishandle it. Though this one doesn't get as sharp, it's super effective and has worked well for me. First of all, I want to say I don't have a lot of money to spend on cooking, but I sure love to do it. And a lot of that money goes towards good food. So when it comes to utensils for the kitchen, I, as much as I'd like to, don't have the money to buy a $200 nice Japanese knife. So this knife I got from my mom. She gave it to me when I went to college. Still use it to this day. This knife may look fancy, but $1 at Goodwill. So you never know what you might find. This I got on Facebook Marketplace in addition to this, my first 2 cleavers. So all this to say that you can still get great results with cheap knives and still cook great things, even if you don't have the most expensive knife in the game. This knife in particular is a Zwilling knife. It's just one of the cheap plastic ones. I want to say they're like $30 on Amazon. I'll link it below. But the best thing about this is you can abuse it. I mean, you can drop this knife, you can put it in a dishwasher. I don't, but you probably could. But what I'm trying to say is that it's a great knife to learn with because it's big enough for anything you need to do, and it gets dull pretty quick. But if you take care of it, it can teach you a lot of the skills and a lot of knife techniques that you just need to learn as a cook. And so I really appreciate what this knife has taught me. So first of all knives get dull over time, but they don't always need to be sharpened. Sometimes they just need to be honed. So this is something that I recommend everyone invests in because you can spend $15 to $30 on a honing rod, and then your knives will last way longer before they need to be actually sharpened again and have metal removed from them. And so it'll extend the life of your knives, but also make them more enjoyable to use because it's simply easier to do a couple strokes on the honing rod than it is to go through the process of sharpening them, and you get much better results than if you were to just let your knife get duller and duller and duller and you continue to smash through tomatoes that don't want to be cut. I think the other fun thing as someone that doesn't have a ton of money to spend on kitchen knives is I love going to the Goodwill. I found this one for $1, and it's always fun to like kind of rummage around in the kitchen utensils, and I always look for a knife or good knives in there because a lot of times there's those ceramic ones that I don't really like. But if I find a nice heavy one like this one, I found this one for $1. I always go for it because it's really fun to have a knife that you could potentially bring back to its former glory. And I'm going to share some tips on how you can bring a cheap knife back into its former glory and make it very usable in your home kitchen. A couple of years ago for Christmas, my sister bought me my first Whetstone, and it's my only Whetstone. So there it goes to show that you can do a lot with a little. And so I found it really motivational that you could use a Whetstone that also is like a one-time purchase. You're not buying new knives every 6 months or a year when they get dull. It's a one-time purchase. It'll last you forever if you take good care of it. And you can use that Whetstone to really give your knives a second life. And so if you simply, and it's very almost meditational to practice going back and forth on your knives. And so I really enjoy that process, and I think it's a fun way to kind of learn how to take care of the stuff that you care about and your kitchen utensils, even when your knives aren't nice. I think that's something that really stuck with me, is that if you give them the care and attention that you would a nice knife, they're going to work pretty good, and they're going to have that sentimental value where you're like, all right, maybe I'm not going to throw this in the dishwasher anymore, or I'm not going to leave it in the bottom of the sink to get wrecked by my roommates, right? You give it a little bit more care and attention. My third point is that you want to be really nice on your knives, and it'll basically make them last a whole lot longer because you've done all this work to sharpen them, to hone them, but you want to make sure that you are taking care of them. And by this, I mean, you're not going to leave your nice knives in the sink. It's if you're doing dishes throughout your meal, which is great, you're getting ahead of things. Maybe just leave the knife on the counter till the end when you can be very intentional and wash it with a soft sponge or a soft scrubber. And then, dry it with a dish towel, or if it's stainless steel, you can leave it in a safe place to dry. Um, but the other part of that is trying to avoid using knife blocks, because knife blocks, when you slide it in every time, it just dulls the edge over and over. And so, especially on a nicer knife, but even these knives, it's really important to find a place. Like I got a magnet strip to pull them up where the edge isn't being deteriorated in the put away process, and when you get them out to use them. So that's my last tip, is to just try to be very intentional. I really like expensive knives. They're pretty, they work well, but up until yesterday, I didn't own anything other than this $1 knife or this $15 to $30 knife. And so while I'm really excited to like play with the new toy and kind of respect it, these guys are what got me started and what I think are really important to always kind of respect and maintain, because they're super accessible, and that's important for a lot of people, including myself. I like that they're cheap, and I like that they work well if you take care of them well. And so what I'm really trying to stress is that you can do a lot with a knife that doesn't, have I don't know what it's called, but the little bubbles on the side that prevent it from sticking, or like a nice, beautiful wooden handle or antler handle or something crazy like that. While those knives are super beautiful, these ones get it done in a pinch, and I'm not worried about breaking them. So you can really abuse them and learn how to cook and get a lot better and practice your knife skills with these knives that are honestly plenty good enough for any home cook. Hopefully now you feel like you can embrace the kitchen knives that you have and make better use of the old ones that you have laying around. And I hope that this video was helpful. And if you feel like you're interested in more cooking tips, I did a video a couple weeks ago about some cooking tips, so feel free to check that out. I'll link it below. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.